Sehr geehrter Herr Bundespräsident, ich weiß nicht, wie ich Ihnen für Ihre überaus freundlichen Worte.
The palace is silent, but behind those grand gates, something terrifying is unfolding. The word hospice accidentally appears on the king's royal profile, and the internet erupts. Is King Charles III hiding a dark truth about his health? And what does this mean for the future of the monarchy? Brace yourself. You're about to discover secrets that were never meant to be seen. The news hit the world like a thunderclap. King Charles III, only recently crowned, barely a year into his reign, was diagnosed with cancer. The statement, released by Buckingham Palace in early 2024, was as carefully worded as it was unsettling. It acknowledged the king's illness, but danced around the edges of truth. One key detail was deliberately withheld: the type of cancer. While palace officials assured the public that it was not prostate cancer, they refused to name the specific condition. And just like that, silence became suspicion. The air around the monarchy grew thick with unease. This sudden wave of ambiguity only intensified public concern for a figure so steeped in tradition and scrutiny. What exactly was the palace trying to hide? As questions mounted, one truth emerged. This wasn't just about illness. It was about control. King Charles had always been a man of ceremony, duty, and image. But now, that image was cracking, and behind it was something the monarchy couldn't afford to show: vulnerability. The king had just undergone a procedure to treat an enlarged prostate. It seemed routine until the procedure unearthed something more sinister. Suddenly, his royal calendar emptied. Events were cancelled. Public appearances vanished. The sovereign was stepping back, disappearing into the shadows of his own palace. And the British public, long accustomed to the consistency of royal protocol, began to feel the tremors of uncertainty. Then came the word that broke the internet hospice. Somehow, inexplicably, the official royal website included the term on King Charles's profile page. Within moments, screenshots circulated across social media like wildfire. Hospice isn't a word you attach to a monarch unless you're preparing for the end. The palace was swift to delete it, claiming it was a technical glitch. But by then, the damage had been done. A crack had appeared in the wall of secrecy, and through it, the public saw something they couldn't unsee. Was the king closer to death than anyone had dared to admit? This wasn't the kind of narrative the monarchy was built for. For centuries, it thrived on strength, on the illusion of permanence. But now, beneath the crown and ceremonial robes, was a man 75 years old, fragile, and perhaps facing the final chapter of his life. The carefully constructed image of regal endurance was unraveling, and with it, the stability of the monarchy itself was being called into question. Why hadn't the palace disclosed more? What were they trying to manage, public panic or private grief? Or was it something far more devastating? Whispers inside the palace walls hinted at contingency plans already being activated. Was Operation Manai Bridge, the secret royal protocol for the king's passing, being quietly set into motion? Some insiders said yes. Others denied it vehemently. But one fact remained. King Charles had become an outpatient, reportedly continuing treatment in private while handling only essential state matters. His reign, once heralded with such fanfare, now seemed shrouded in shadows. But Charles wasn't the only one battling a devastating diagnosis. Just when the world was still reeling from the shocking news about King Charles, another devastating revelation sent tremors through the monarchy. In March 2024, Princess Catherine, beloved by millions, a modern royal icon, stepped forward and revealed what no one had seen coming. She had cancer. The announcement was quiet, almost whispered through an official statement, but its impact was deafening. Her recent abdominal surgery, once thought to be routine, had uncovered something darker. And just like that, the fairy tale image of the royal family cracked once again. This wasn't just a personal battle, it was a public reckoning. In the weeks that followed, Catherine vanished from public life. No speeches, no appearances, no comforting smiles. For a woman who had long balanced regal grace with human warmth, the silence was haunting. Behind the palace walls, she focused on what mattered most: her children, her healing, and the fragile thread of time that suddenly felt shorter. Royal duties faded into the background as Catherine made the most difficult decision of all: to step back, to slow down, to prioritize her survival over ceremony. And in doing so, she made a bold, almost rebellious statement, one that shattered centuries of royal expectation. She chose self-care over spectacle. While the monarchy kept a brave face, Prince William took on the weight of the crown in waiting. He became the front line of a faltering institution, carrying out royal engagements, making appearances, and trying to keep order in a kingdom clouded with uncertainty. But behind his composed exterior was a man watching the love of his life fight a battle he couldn't fix. Their roles shifted. Their foundation was tested. And all the while, Catherine's retreat from the spotlight only amplified public anxiety. The people weren't just watching a royal family, they were witnessing it unravel. Then came her first reappearance. The cameras captured her arrival, but something felt different. Her posture more reserved, her eyes distant, her smile faint. Rumors exploded online. Was she truly healed? Or was this another strategic illusion to uphold the monarchy's fragile image? Whispers spread, and concern turned to fear. Had the cancer returned? Was she masking deeper pain beneath a royal wave? The truth remained carefully guarded, but Catherine's public message was clear. She urged others to embrace vulnerability, to seek rest, to place family above everything. And in doing so, she transformed her suffering into something far greater than duty. She became a symbol of strength through surrender. What Catherine did in silence echoed louder than any speech. Her illness forced the royal family and the public to confront the humanity beneath the crown. No longer was she just the Princess of Wales. She was a wife, a mother, a woman at war with her own body, choosing to rise slowly, gently, with purpose. Her return wasn't a comeback. It was a redefinition. And as the world watched her navigate this fragile new chapter, it became clear that the monarchy had shifted. No longer invincible, no longer impenetrable, just real. With both the king and future queen unwell, the question no one wants to ask looms closer. There's a plan quiet, cold, and waiting in the shadows. Its name is Operation Manai Bridge. It doesn't make headlines. It's never spoken aloud in the public halls of power. But it exists, and its purpose is chilling. Conceived as the protocol for the death of King Charles III, this operation isn't just paperwork or ceremonial etiquette. It's a master plan for the unthinkable, the passing of a monarch in the modern age, a contingency forged in silence, now whispering through the corridors of Buckingham Palace with terrifying urgency. Because beneath the polished surface of royal optimism, something much darker is being quietly prepared. Modeled after Operation London Bridge, the protocol used for Queen Elizabeth II's death, Manai Bridge, outlines every step of what happens after the king takes his final breath. The immediate public announcement, the nationwide mourning period, the silent procession of grief that will cascade across the United Kingdom. It maps the transition of power from father to son, from King Charles to Prince William. And in its details lies a subtle confession. They know the end may be near. Every royal official involved in Manai Bridge knows this isn't just about tradition. It's about preserving the monarchy itself from collapsing under the weight of uncertainty. But this plan, however methodical, wasn't supposed to matter, at least not yet. Charles had only just ascended the throne. At 73, he became king after decades of waiting, crowned in a ceremony filled with promises of service and renewal. Yet barely a year later, the crown feels more like a countdown. Despite public reassurances, his shift to outpatient care has only intensified concerns. What kind of treatment demands seclusion? Why are appearances so carefully managed? His public engagements so limited, so choreographed? The palace's silence has become louder than any statement. And inside those walls, palace insiders claim the machinery of Manai Bridge is already humming. Then came the leak. That single word, hospice, appearing on the king's official royal webpage. The monarchy called it a technical glitch, a digital fluke. But for millions, it was the first undeniable crack in the facade. Hospice care doesn't suggest hope, it signals finality. Comfort in place of cure. And though the word vanished quickly, the implication lingered like a ghost. Was this accidental truth? A pre-scheduled page gone live too early? Or worse, a reflection of what's really happening behind those palace doors? As the public clings to fragments of hope, the whispers of Manai Bridge grow louder. Anonymous sources claim meetings have taken place, contingency instructions reviewed, emergency communication lines tested. Behind the royal curtain, the monarchy is bracing itself. Not for if, but when. The king's reign, brief as it is, now stands in the shadow of a plan built for his end. And as these quiet preparations continue, one question grows louder than all the rest. Who's ready to step in if the king can no longer reign? For most of his life, Prince William was shielded behind the titles, traditions, and expectations that come with royal blood. But nothing, no title, no protocol could prepare him for what he faces now. At just 41, he is no longer simply the Prince of Wales. He is the monarchy's last line of stability, with his father battling a mysterious and undisclosed cancer, and his wife, Catherine, recovering from her own devastating diagnosis. William has stepped into a role he never asked for, the reluctant heir under pressure. And that pressure, though silent, is suffocating. From childhood, William walked a path shaped by contradiction. He was born into palaces, but taken to shelters. He lived surrounded by wealth, but was taught to serve those with nothing. That was Diana's doing. The people's princess refused to let her sons be locked away behind royal walls. She took them out into the real world, the gritty, painful, honest parts of life that most royals never touch. It was those early moments that planted the seed of something different in William. Empathy. He wasn't just raised to lead, he was raised to feel. And now, with the crown hovering above him like a storm cloud, that empathy has become both his greatest strength and deepest burden. As king, Charles's health declines and Princess Catherine withdraws from the spotlight. William has become the monarchy's most visible force. Alone, he now carries the image, the duties, the very essence of the crown. Royal engagements that once showcased the unity of the royal family now feature just him, shaking hands, making speeches, holding a smile that hides 1,000 worries. Every solo appearance is more than ceremony. It's a silent declaration that he is next. And whether he's ready or not, the world is already watching him as a king in waiting. But behind the polished exterior lies a man stretched to the brink. He is not only the face of a royal institution in crisis, he is also a husband watching his wife fight for her health, and a father trying to give his children a sense of normalcy in a life that offers anything but. The balance between private despair and public duty has become a tightrope. Every step forward is a test. Every pause is scrutinized. And with every headline about the king's declining health or Catherine's recovery, the pressure tightens, like a noose. Still, William continues. He shows up. He leads. Not with fanfare, but with the quiet strength inherited from both his parents, his mother's heart, and his father's sense of duty. But there is a cost to bearing this weight alone. A cost that is slowly becoming visible in the lines of his face and the fatigue in his voice. The monarchy may rest on his shoulders now, but even the strongest foundations can crack under too much pressure. But with William in the spotlight, another shadow lurks behind the throne. Camilla's story was never meant to lead here. Not to the throne, not to a title, and certainly not to respect. For decades, her name was uttered in whispers, often paired with blame, scandal, and betrayal. To the public, she wasn't just the other woman, she was the woman who shattered the fairy tale. The woman who stood in the shadow of Princess Diana. And for years, that shadow clung to her like a curse. No matter how composed she appeared, how loyal she remained, the world refused to forget. But behind the headlines and harsh judgment, a different story was unfolding, one of survival, resilience, and a calculated rise to power. Camilla didn't claw her way into royalty. She waited, silently, through decades of scrutiny, of being despised by the press, ridiculed by royal loyalists, and blamed for one of the most tragic love triangles in modern history. Even after Diana's death, forgiveness came slowly, if at all. But Charles never wavered. Behind palace walls, he insisted her role in his life was non-negotiable. She wasn't a phase or a fling. She was his constant. And slowly, through carefully managed appearances, charity work, and a refined public image, Camilla began to shift from villain to fixture. By the time they married in 2005, the outrage was quieter, though far from gone. But she didn't need universal approval. She had Charles's crown inching closer. What few anticipated was that Camilla, the woman once shamed by the world, would become one of the last active pillars of the royal family. As Charles battles illness and retreats from public view, and as Kate Middleton fights her own private war against cancer, Camilla has emerged not as a relic of scandal, but as a working royal, showing up, holding steady, taking on engagements that others now physically or emotionally cannot. In a palace bracing for change, she has become, ironically, its most visible constant. But her presence is complicated. For some, she represents the monarchy's ability to evolve, to forgive, to humanize. For others, she's still a painful reminder of betrayal, of Diana, of everything that went wrong when love collided with duty. And that duality hangs over her every appearance. Is she the stabilizing force the crown desperately needs? Or is she the last thread tying the monarchy to a chapter it desperately wants to forget? Camilla's transformation from scandal to strength isn't just unexpected, it's unsettling. Because it forces the public to reconcile two truths: that she endured decades of hatred and still remained, and that her place beside Charles was never about fairy tales, it was about fortitude. Now, as the king grows weaker, and as the royal line holds its breath, Camilla stands firm. Once unwelcome, now indispensable. But royal stability doesn't just depend on current leaders, it hinges on tradition. There are rules in the monarchy, unspoken, unwavering, almost sacred. And one of the oldest among them is painfully simple. Heirs to the throne must never fly together. It's not superstition, it's strategy. Protection of the bloodline. Preservation of the crown. If tragedy strikes, the succession must remain intact. But in a stunning departure from royal protocol, Prince William and Princess Catherine broke that tradition without hesitation. They boarded a plane to the Caribbean, their 3 children beside them. All together. One aircraft, one risk. And just like that, the monarchy held its breath. To some, it was a harmless gesture. Modern royals trying to live as a family, not a dynasty. But to others, it was reckless, even dangerous. In that moment, the entire future of the monarchy was placed on a single flight manifest. William, the heir. George, the next. And Charlotte and Louis, the backups. Had anything gone wrong, the crown would have plunged into chaos. 1,000 years of lineage, potentially erased in seconds. And for what? A family getaway? A rejection of royal rigidity? Or something deeper, a silent rebellion against a system that demands they live by rules carved in stone? The debate lit up across newsrooms and living rooms alike. Was this a bold move forward for a modern monarchy, or a foolhardy risk that exposed just how vulnerable the royal future truly is? As the world watches a kingdom teetering between tradition and survival, every step the royals take is magnified. With King Charles battling cancer and Princess Catherine recovering from her own diagnosis, the public is more aware than ever of the fragility behind the facade. And in that climate of fear, the sight of the entire line of succession flying together felt less like a family moment and more like a gamble with destiny. Yet, perhaps that's the point. In a world that's changing faster than the monarchy can control, maybe William and Kate were sending a message. They're not just figures. In a history book, they're human. They bleed, they break, they take risks. But even so, tradition doesn't bend easily. And the monarchy, no matter how modern its face may seem, is still rooted in survival above all else. And this isn't the first time the royal bloodline has been tested by illness. For a family built on legacy and lineage, there's an eerie thread woven through the royal bloodline, one the crown has never dared to address aloud. A sickness that returns again and again across generations. King George VI, Queen Elizabeth's father, died of lung cancer after years of silent suffering. His brother, Edward VIII, once king, was forced to watch his voice fade under the weight of throat cancer. Now, decades later, history seems to be repeating itself, only this time the pattern feels impossible to ignore. King Charles with an undisclosed form of cancer. Princess Catherine blindsided the world with her own diagnosis. Two royal figures, side by side in sickness, dragging the weight of the monarchy through a storm of whispered fears. Is this truly a coincidence, or is there something more sinister unfolding behind palace walls? The public, once quick to dismiss speculation, is no longer so certain. What began as respectful concern has evolved into something darker. An uncomfortable question echoes louder with each announcement. Is the crown cursed? How can one family, protected, privileged, powerful, be so relentlessly haunted by disease? These are not isolated incidents. They're part of a chain, stretching back through time, pulling the present into the shadows of the past. And with every royal health scare, that chain tightens. The monarchy's image has always relied on a carefully crafted illusion of strength, of stability, of immortality. But illness is a truth that can't be staged, and cancer doesn't respect bloodlines. It tears down kings and queens like anyone else. And yet, when that truth keeps striking the same house, the same name, generation after generation, people begin to wonder, what if this isn't just bad luck? What if something, somewhere deep in the walls of the palace, is carrying a darkness that refuses to be silenced? Meanwhile, world leaders are responding with words of unity. But silence from the palace speaks louder. The diagnosis may have shaken the British monarchy, but its tremors have been felt across the globe. As King Charles fights a battle cloaked in secrecy, world leaders have broken their silence not with politics, but with compassion. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, the voice of the nation, expressed confidence in the king's strength and offered prayers on behalf of the British people. Across the Atlantic, President Joe Biden called the diagnosis a test of bravery and spirit, sending heartfelt wishes from the American people. Even Donald Trump, never known for subtlety, called Charles a wonderful man and joined the growing chorus of global concern. From Justin Trudeau in Canada to Anthony Albanese in Australia, the message was the same. We're with you, Majesty. But behind these statements of unity lies a chilling truth. These leaders are not just sending well wishes. They're preparing for what comes next. Because hope, though noble, doesn't cancel reality. And in every corner of the Commonwealth, governments are quietly asking the same question the palace won't answer publicly. What happens if the king can't return? The Crown insists Charles is still conducting state business, signing documents, reading briefings, and engaging in what they call constitutional duties. But the absence is deafening. He's vanished from public view. No events, no speeches, no face to steady the nation. And when a monarch disappears, fear fills the void. Rumors of abdication swirl in hushed tones. Behind palace gates, Operation Manai Bridge no longer feels like a contingency, it feels like a countdown. The choreography of transition, once theoretical, is inching toward reality. Advisors are preparing. Protocols are being reviewed. No one dares say it aloud, but everyone knows the dance has begun. And yet, amid all this, the royal family remains outwardly poised, refusing to let emotion crack the porcelain mask of tradition. But that mask is slipping. The British monarchy, once the symbol of eternal order, now stands at a crossroads. Its image, long defined by endurance, is now shadowed by uncertainty. Charles's reign, brief and turbulent, may never become the legacy he waited a lifetime to build. And the future? It hinges on William, on Catherine, on a generation scarred by grief, but molded by resilience. The road ahead isn't ceremonial, it's personal, and the burden is immense. As the curtain slowly lowers on King Charles's reign, one haunting question echoes across the realm. Is the crown a blessing or a burden? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.